Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back in. If you are currently heading to your seat, could you move as swiftly as you can? Thank you very, very much indeed. We are slightly behind in time here today, but we will endeavour to catch up as our afternoon moves on. But very warm welcome to you as we move to the next of our sessions. Our next session is right here, talking around the impact of digital technology on mobility and business. And our speakers here on stage will be delving into the rich areas of opportunity and challenge that face the world and consulting engineering community. To help us understand your points of view and your experiences, we're going to do some voting here as well. So can you use the conference app for this once again, if you'd like to get the conference app up and running? And we'll move to two questions that we're going to ask you prior to the session starting here. The first of these questions is around the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and BIM, I should say. One of the biggest drivers for the future. And the question we'll ask you is, does our industry understand and embrace this new market driver? Is this a yes or a no? So let's go to that first question. If you have your apps there, you have your voting ready to go. Let's do this right now. Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and BIM, one of the biggest drivers for the future. Does our industry understand and embrace this new market driver? So as we can see, 30 seconds. Please answer the question away. Let's find out what the results will be in time. It's fantastic to see your engagement as we move through these questions as well. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. There, let's have a look at the results on that. There we go. Even split. All right, everyone, nobody's sitting on the fence here. Okay.
Okay, results. Activate. Can you just click on activate and then start?
Okay. We'll move to our next question. I believe we can. The next question is, disruptive technology is widely evidenced across other industries. Do we believe our industry is ready to be disrupted? I've said disruptive here, but we'll say, should it be disrupted? Is this a yes or a no? Let us move to the next question and see what happens here. Move along. Disruptive technology widely evidenced across other industries. Is our industry ready to be disruptive and or disrupted? Yes or no? Interesting split in the previous question. There we go. Time is up here. Let us have a look at the results. What do you think? Interesting, interesting. 31% from a positive point of view, a 69% split there, looking at, do we believe we're ready? Okay, so let's delve into some of the elements here over the course of the next 50 or 60 minutes or so. Let me just jump through here. We are moving to two presenters who are joining us here on stage. Our first speaker is the CEO of Bentley Systems, Greg Bentley. He's a global leader dedicated to providing engineers, architects, constructors, geospatial professionals and owner-operators with comprehensive software solutions for advancing infrastructure. And I will hand the floor to him directly. Ladies and gents, round of applause please for Greg Bentley.
Well, good afternoon, and thanks to each of you for your interest in exploring how going digital can be of advantage to engineering consultancies, for instance, in mobility and smart infrastructure. And for those less familiar with our company, Bentley Systems began 34 years ago with 5 Bentley brothers, and we now are just over 3,500 folks in 55 countries where you are, helping you with software in your advancing infrastructure. What's important about the work that we all do in advancing infrastructure, and unique about it, is it's infrastructure. In advancing that, we advance both our economy and our environment at the same time, limited only by our advancement of the infrastructure professions, and that's why we at Bentley sponsor organizations like FIDIC and events like this. So as Gerno introduced this morning, I'm going to suggest that an opportunity can come about in industrializing project delivery, but that would mean not only more manufacturing, but also with industrializing, we mean things are repeatable and scalable and more automated to a greater degree. So our company sponsors a Year in Infrastructure conference each year. It's coming up in a month in London. In your bag is an invitation and how to register. But in 2016 at our conference, the speaker, the head of building research in China, described as industrialization their strategy. And this is the sort of thing that was being reported at the time, the degree of prefabrication and so forth. But if you look at Alibaba today, you can see what can be industrialized or how far it's come in China to this point. So in our conference last year, we were in Singapore. Professional juries in each of 18 categories choose the nominated projects that best represent going digital for advancing infrastructure, and you can see how the winners were distributed with 10 from China. By the way, not a Chinese person on any jury, to my knowledge. And for instance, the winner in roadway design was this project, and that's the way it designed and looks in China. But I want to bring to your attention, when we talk about industrialization, this finalist project in power generation. This is a huge pump storage project. What's interesting is that the very same Design Institute for Power China was the winner in the category of municipal engineering. And what China has done is quite interesting. They have assigned to the major industrial design institutes like this one in Power China, they've been matched up with mega cities in China and given responsibility to be the BIM champions to advance going digital there. This is part of their submission for their mobility and smart infrastructure project, if you like. And what they do in China is use all of our Bentley Systems software first and furthest and fastest, as you see here, in the way that projects are done now in China. But you have also new entrants, non-conventional entrants, as someone said this morning. A lot was said about Elon Musk. He's never boring, but he has now a business in infrastructure. Richard Branson wants to do the same here in Europe. And what was interesting about last week's reporting of the team getting going in Chicago is that it appeared in ENR, by the way, ironically adjacent to an ad we placed at Bentley Systems to promote Mott MacDonald's advancements with digital workflows. But it went on to say that Mott MacDonald unfortunately lost out to Musk, and then they've lost more than that because the tunnel engineer has now been hired by the boring company, and they're on the look for more engineers. Now, Keith Howells of Mott's very fairly said to me last night, of course, they haven't built a tunnel yet, so we'll see. But the question of tech giants, could they be going physical? This example is Toronto, where Google has a project to build a smart neighborhood, and the suggestion is that's a guinea pig for Google. Where may their aspirations go in our space? And this summer, I met with the CEO of Microsoft at their campus, and what was on the front of his mind was smart spaces and how information about that can be useful to Microsoft over the life cycle of infrastructure. Here we are meeting together to talk about and work on the future of the HoloLens, but the occasion of my being there was that Bentley Systems is Microsoft's 2018 Partner of the Year in the category that they call City Next, and they've produced this example of mobility in smart infrastructure. It's got some sound, if we could turn that on.
Experiencing a significant growth in population. With over 9 million inhabitants, rapid urbanization and city planning challenges, Malaysia's Mass Rapid Transit Corporation, or MRTC, is keeping the city moving with the delivery of its Klang Valley Mass Rapid Transit SSP line.
The Malaysian government's Economic Transformation Program is an initiative to turn Malaysia into a high-income economy. Development of a truly world-class transportation system is a key goal of the program, and the KV MRT system is providing a major boost in the integration and efficiency of urban public transport.
As the system's owner and developer, MRTC is on a digital journey, harnessing the latest technology from Bentley Systems and Microsoft to deliver one of the most ambitious projects ever undertaken in Asia.
For us, the whole project's life cycle is important, be it from the design, construction, up to operation, asset management. We needed to make sure that all the different phases are well covered, and information that we build up during design, during construction, are taken forward during the operation and maintenance stage for better understanding.
A key challenge faced on projects of this scale and complexity is ensuring seamless information exchange and real-time collaboration among hundreds of stakeholders.
To manage a huge amount of data and information on one common platform is a challenge. We have a lot of productivity issues when we work during the construction phase, which we feel that if we adopt a better workflow, a better platform, we could almost eliminate those things to a large extent.
Bentley's connected data environment, hosted on Microsoft Azure, was chosen to optimize operations on a collaborative platform.
We're going to stop there to focus on this notion of information being brought forward from design for the life cycle, because that is the opportunity for engineering consultancies. And our connected data environment is how, from project delivery on the one hand through asset performance, we can accomplish that together to mutual advantage. It's been to our advantage at Bentley Systems. We started with engineering design tools, if you like, on the BIM side, but we've now become, according to ARC, #1 in the world in asset reliability software. And you can too, I think, follow that path to business value. So ProjectWise is our environment to help virtualize your talent, if you like, for your project delivery, and AssetWise creates new opportunity for all of us. As to those opportunities, I know here at FIDIC you work on contract forms. In the UK, the top owners together are advocating a new commercial model they call Project 13, and it has to do with involvement of an enterprise, a virtual enterprise, including engineering consultancies across the whole asset lifecycle. Because you could say the potential we create with BIM and that you create with our applications in your projects, those are the digital engineering models that are the potential to be digital twins, and the digital twins should serve as the baseline and the frame of reference, if you like, the digital DNA doing operations and maintenance. That sounds like a good aspiration. How do we get going towards it? When we say going digital, we have something specific in mind. By going digital, we mean that information created by one computer program can be queried and found and utilized by another computer program, so you have, if you like, mobility of information. And digital workflows in your firm are about automating that and making it repeatable. And if there would be, of course, we together want to advance your best projects, but could every project be as good as your best project? And to the degree of digital workflows, the opportunity in going digital within your firms is to make every project be much like your best project by virtue of this level of automation. Now, our ProjectWise environment automates digital workflows, and we are working with BST Global to introduce new and further digital workflows, which you'll see in the future. How to get started and how to accelerate, as I think we agree would be important for engineering consultancies. Our observation here is that every project through its life cycle shares a digital context in which the infrastructure asset performs. It is, when you do design, it's with components that can be digital components across the life cycle as well, and a connected data environment can make that possible. Let's go to digital context. In 2016, we introduced reality modeling, which enabled devices including simple cameras and mounted on UAVs, when overlapping photographs are taken, our software processes that, triangulates it into a reality mesh model that's engineering ready for the start of your projects. And it can be done as simply as this is an example in a sample plant here in Germany to create. You can always have an as-operated 3D model on any scale. Last year we added the capability for the inputs to also be laser scans, and if you look on the right here, you see a point cloud resulting from laser scanning. They're lossy and large and verbose and not nearly as useful as the mesh, which is engineering ready and compact and smart, but you can use laser scanning to supplement photography to improve the quality of that as-operated 3D model. So we also introduced last year Context Capture Mobile from a smartphone in the field. You can take a succession of photographs and produce immediately, and cloud processes the triangulation of those into a reality mesh like this to be part of your field workflows. And most recently now, acquisition devices can also include infrared photography. So here's an entrepreneurial opportunity and new business value. This mapping company, Sanborn, in Santa Clara, California, used the technology to create what they call these high-definition maps. They are used for the testing of the software within autonomous vehicles. Brand new business opportunity. Well, what's digital components? So here's an example of mobility in smart infrastructure, but there's a humble storm drain here. The thing is that storm drain is a digital component in that it is the same storm drain across all of our applications for various disciplines. And your firms should have your intellectual property of your libraries of intelligent digital components to be applied in this way, and which would know their fabrication strategies and start to collect their failure modes and experience, for instance, here in AssetWise. Now, how would we put digital context and digital components together in digital workflows? And let's start, as you do, with project delivery. So a digital workflow for conceptioneering would involve engineering with surveying at the early stage of a project. So this one is in my home city of Philadelphia. So first of all, we'll find that within Philadelphia there exists a reality mesh, a reality model of Philadelphia, and then that can be used as the backdrop. We're now going to refer to digital components to conceptualize a new bridge over our Schuylkill River, and this can go just as quickly as you see here because we're using notional components. But they understand their costs and quantities, so we can be exploring the feasibility and perhaps creating new project opportunities. This now extends also, the product here is Open Roads Concept Station, and we also now have Open Rail Concept Station to change what's possible at this stage of digital workflows. And then there's constructioneering, and we work closely with TopCon so that engineering can be part of workflows for heavy civil that involve positioning devices, automation, and robotics on heavy civil work sites. But I want to describe a project for an opportunity with our Synchro software for every type of project.
Our stadium is 60 years old and has undertaken no major renovations since 1992. Spy Barça is a multi-year project that aims to deliver one of the best sports facilities in all the world. Since the beginning of the project, our team had clear that we wanted to use the latest technology.
Synchro software is a 4D construction simulation and planning platform. So the fourth dimension adds this element of time in a way that you can actually visualize, see it, and believe in what your plan is. And now we're getting into how to interact with even the site cameras that are monitoring the job site. How can we use all of this information that's coming to FC Barcelona and sort of mash that up against the Synchro 4D plan model? Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, and can we even use things like vision systems and machine learning to help predict that? The scope of this project basically demands that we look for new solutions. For this, we turn to Microsoft.
Microsoft launched HoloLens 2 years ago, and today we're not only leveraging the power of HoloLens, we're combining also the power of the cloud and the power of AI cognitive services in our IoT technology to really help to bring out the next level of industrial revolution.
Whether that task is site monitoring with a mobile device or doing a field inspection with a HoloLens, all that content can move back and forth from the cloud down to device, back and forth.
The use of 4D construction helps us in many different ways. In the way that we design, we coordinate the works, and we deliver the final product.
Barcelona providing the content and the demand, Synchro, the 4D solution, and then Microsoft providing the backup of HoloLens, Azure, Vision, and basically a platform for innovation. We're looking forward to deliver a great experience to the fans of FC Barcelona.
Leo Messi!
We can't wait for all the other industry solution providers to join us in this journey to see what kind of magic we can create together with mixed reality, cloud, and AI.
I realize not everyone here will be a fan of FC Barcelona, but a fan of the opportunities we're talking about. And if the greater opportunity for engineering consultancies is new business models and asset performance, where would that start? So in inspectioneering, engineering and surveying work together so that, for instance, in this digital workflow, here's how communications towers are inspected now in Italy, and this drone payload has not only a camera and a scanner, but also magnetic detection devices and infrared. So its inspection result looks like this. It starts with machine learning to recognize and classify the antennas on this tower, and then machine learning to recognize the rust and corrosion and produce a useful report for the owners. And I would think many of you who have design facilities could be involved in inspectioneering. Your engineers don't have to go to the site to contribute. Let's conclude with operationeering, if you like, and how engineering consultancies could be involved in new digital workflows. So I'm going to go back to that humble storm drain. And the thing is, it could get clogged and rain could happen. So this is our OpenFlow flood software used to simulate resilience against flood. But let's suppose that you were the municipal engineers here in Santa Clara, California, and you might therefore have a good model of the terrain and the elevations and the impervious cover and be able to consider that if rain were coming, a new service you could have could involve, for instance, if owners had assets in this particular area, or maybe you were doing drainage work in this area and could model with your analytics the effect of the rain because you would understand the networks that exist there. That would include the transportation networks, the rail and road, but the drainage networks are critical in this rain forecast, so you would have perhaps inspected those, or maybe you would be responsible, maybe you are assuring flood resilience in this part of the city. So you would look at your reality mesh from the continuous surveying and be able to determine what the capacity is of even clogged storm drains, or if it were your responsibility, you might have unclogged them, or maybe not if it didn't really matter. And then when the flood could be modeled because your analytics folks would understand how to apply weather and look at what the potential impact could be. Flood resilience is so important an economic factor in the world now that someone said it earlier, if that can be done, it will be done. It's the type of digital workflow that can be to the advantage of engineering consultancies, I believe. And may I pass the clicker now to Javier Baldor of BST Global.
Fabulous.
Absolutely fabulous presentation so far. Greg Bentley from Bentley Systems offering us a phenomenal view of what is actually possible. I want you to start thinking about how the information you've just seen here from Greg applies to your businesses and to the industry as a whole. Towards the conclusion of this particular session, we'll come out to you and we'll be asking for your input as well. We'll get some questions here from the floor. So have a think about this at this point as we start to look at what is just possible. Absolutely cutting edge, Greg, I have to say. Very, very excited. And I've got certainly a few questions for you as well when we get to the conclusion of the session. But I think we will pass this over right now to Javier Baldor from BST Global.
Before I begin, very well done, Greg. Thank you for your remarks. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege to be with you here in beautiful Berlin for the FIDIC International Infrastructure Conference. Today, the impact of digital technology on businesses is a topic at hand and certainly has been discussed by the panel this morning and certainly through Greg's insightful remarks. I'd like to discuss with you how you can leverage digital technologies to improve your project management practices and ultimately your operating margins, which I know were under duress per the discussion this morning. Now, when it comes to operating margins, industry studies show that actually AEC firms consistently perform well below their professional service firm peers. To combat this, we have found that through working with our clients that many engineering consultancies are actually turning to their project managers to improve delivery, productivity, and actually, ultimately, their margins. As firms look to empower their PMs to own all aspects of project health, they must provide support in a variety of ways. Digital project management is at the center of this movement, and why and how you can enable is the focus of my presentation this afternoon. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll first set the stage by talking about the digital imperative for a consultancy like yours, then survey emerging aspects of the digital landscape. We'll then look at the benefits of going digital. And lastly, I'll share 6 steps that you can take to empower your PMs and enable digital project management within your respective firms. To establish some context for digital project management, let's first look at what's driving things in this direction. Given the work that we do at BST Global, we have a front seat of sorts to have the opportunity to connect with a variety of consultancies all over the world like yours and talk about their challenges. One of the common things we hear is that many firms are actually being squeezed from 2 directions. The downward pricing pressures that are coming from the marketplace and your clients, and the ever-increasing expense of securing and retaining top talent. This is happening at the same time. This is driving many consultancies to actually look for ways to become more efficient and retain their margins in the midst of these pressures. Given these 2 key areas of focus, that is finding efficiencies and retaining margins, let's take a step back and look at how today's AEC consultancies stack up in these categories in comparison to the consulting industries at large. For starters, according to a recent McKinsey study, the AEC industry has fallen behind over the past 2 decades in terms of margin and productivity, which was well documented this morning. In just the past decade, less than 15% of AEC firms experienced double-digit growth in terms of margins and overall growth. But the good news is that 20 to 30% operating margins are attainable for a firm that's willing to take on operational change. So what's afflicting today's consultancy and impeding its ability to gain efficiency and improve margins? Well, there are a variety of issues. With a few, we see bubble to the top in terms of project delivery. First are shortfalls in accountability for overall project success. Many firms have a somewhat limited project management function, we see, which focuses primarily on the technical aspects of the project and less on the business success side. Resource management is another common challenge whereby firms can struggle with properly tapping into the full capacity of their staff, instead relying on a very siloed, office-centric approach for assembling project teams. Compounding these challenges are inefficient business processes throughout the project delivery cycle, marked by disconnected systems and redundant data entry, which I'll get into in a bit. So what are the project delivery opportunities? First, we're seeing design firms take a more holistic view project management and start to implement development programs for their project managers. We're also seeing consultancies look for ways to bring together their disparate systems and databases so the data is much more accessible and timely for project managers and other key project stakeholders. And we're seeing a tremendous opportunity for a project-centric approach to dealing with the various processes and tools that are leveraged throughout the project delivery lifecycle. As you consider these project delivery opportunities, digital technologies can play a pivotal role in a better project delivery outcomes. Moreover, these project delivery opportunities are part of a broader wave of transformation that's moving across the industry. As you well know, the engineering firms are experiencing an influx of the millennial workforce and the added tech savvy that these millennials bring to the workforce, and actually the expectations that they have. And those expectations are basically bringing a consumer experience that they're familiar and comfortable with at home, and they're actually expecting that in their workplace. We're also seeing a shift away from office and regionally oriented operating structures to a more integrated, market-aligned practices that better leverage their expertise and relationships. Coupled with this, many firms are embracing work-share as a way to break down internal walls and establish firm-wide pools of talent. Work-share at its core is about heightened resource management. And another shift we're seeing in the industry in this arena is a movement towards actually empowering staff to seek out projects and assignments on their own. As the industry transforms in all of these ways, a net result is beginning to take shape, which is a shift towards a project mindset and a growing focus on digital project management. So there's a clear digital imperative facing today's engineering consultancy. Now let's take a quick look at some of the present and emerging technologies that are paving the way for this shift towards a digital project mindset. Corporate digital transformations and the technologies that support them are growing at an exponential rate. In recent years, it's all been about SMAC. So think about things like social, mobile, analytics, and the cloud, which everyone is quite familiar with. However, while it's important to consider how we can leverage these current technologies to transform our business, we must also keep our eyes on what emerging technologies could support business processes and provide a competitive advantage in the future. Throughout this conference, much has been discussed about some of these emerging technologies, so I'll be brief towards them. But I'd like to call out three in particular that I encourage you to learn more about. These technologies are namely artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and blockchain. In particular, I'd like to touch on one of these three emerging technologies that I believe will have the most impact, transformative impact on our industry, namely artificial intelligence. We see a number of ways the industry could leverage this growing trend. AI, for example, could help you prepare for a project easier by having software agents actually gather documentation for you in advance. What if at the onset of a project we had a way to automatically compile a repository of information to assist in project delivery, such as regulatory guidelines, past similar projects, and internal experts? Or how about payment processing? This is a big pain point for many firms that we speak to. A machine learning system could be trained to match payments to invoices based upon knowledge of existing projects, payment histories, and outstanding bills. Finally, AI could assist with inspections, as Greg noted. By leveraging drones and satellites, a machine learning system could search through thousands of aerial images of projects, such as a pipeline or a bridge, to automatically spot areas that need maintenance and replacement. With all these technologies, though, we must remember that the strength does not lie within the technology itself, but in how you leverage and integrate them to transform your business and the way that you work. To put this in the context of many firms that are sitting here today, here's what your ecosystem of business solutions might look like if you spoke to your CIO. Think of human capital management systems, file management and collaboration systems, of which Bentley and ProjectWise is a leader. I might echo Greg's remarks. We're excited about the prospects of working closely with Bentley similarly. CRM systems, customer relationship management systems, think of solutions like Microsoft CRM and Salesforce, project information management, project portfolio management, and ERP systems from BST, Oracle, SAP, and others. The question is, how can you integrate these solutions to make them more efficient and more powerful and bring added value to your firm? As we visit with firms, it's not uncommon for us to find 10, 15, or 20 different business systems that don't talk to each other. And think about the impact that has on your day-to-day project managers and operational staff. It's quite staggering. So it's a question for you to possibly take back. This notion of integration is a key area of focus for BST right now, and something that I invite you to consider as well. So why go digital? Against this backdrop, the digital landscape is marked by a number of broad benefits of embracing these technologies, or in other words, going digital. In a recent survey, McKinsey confirmed an interesting finding. Digitization reduces economic friction and enables more competition, and in turn puts pressure on revenue and profit growth. So that's what you're experiencing. In fact, McKinsey estimates that digitization has already taken out an average of 6 points of annual revenue and 4.5 points of EBIT, and could continue to take out up to 12 points of revenue and 10.2 points of EBIT. This being said, there is a way to combat this. In the same study, McKinsey found that firms who embraced digitization could actually improve their performance. When a company responded aggressively and underwent a complete digitization, they could restore 11.2% of projected revenue growth, nearly gaining back all of that 12% loss. So whether you like it or not, digitization is here to stay. And the only way to fight the impacts of it is to embrace it. But how? Well, for starters, McKinsey found that the top financially performing respondents were more likely to closely tie their digital and corporate business strategies. What's more, top performers had stronger organizational cultures across business units and were also less likely to be hindered by silo mindsets or fragmented views of their customers. So that all sounds great, but what are some of the barriers to going digital? As companies become progressively more mature in their digital efforts, according to a study by MIT and by Deloitte, found that barriers that they faced began to shift. For example, in companies whose digital efforts are in the early and developing stages, top barriers included a lack of strategy and too many priorities. However, security issues became a greater concern for maturing companies. Similarly, PwC identified several existing and emerging barriers that business leaders felt were stalling their digital transformation efforts. They included lack of properly skilled teams, outdated technologies, lack of integrations, inflexible or slow processes, and the like. So with that, let's take a look at 6 steps that you can take to empower your project managers through the enablement of digital project management. First, as leaders, you must take aggressive action, in my opinion, and become digitally intentional. All senior management must agree that digital transformation is not just necessary, but imperative for the future success of your firm. Beyond that, company leaders must understand and engage with technology at some level. This just can't be turned over to your CIO or your chief digital officer. You need to be able to see how it could help or hurt the business, and then take a look, then look to their teams to help apply these technologies to the business. Secondly, as digital leaders, you should next set out to define your digital strategy and ensure that it aligns with your overall corporate strategy. In doing this, remember to take a people-first approach to your efforts. It's important to engage a representative group of employees who span multiple job levels and disciplines, including your project managers. And that way you can better understand their needs and create a comprehensive view of what digital project management means for your firm, specifically, and how you can actually accomplish it. But no matter what your digital strategy or plan is, it succeeds or fails at the hands of your employees. They must be engaged in the process and feel ownership of the initiative and how it improves their daily work lives. Third, and this should go without saying, but you must be open to change. I know that that's one of the biggest challenges that we discussed earlier through the panels. Not only that, but you must prioritize where change is needed most as a leader, and what digital changes will be most impactful to your business. Your people-centric digital strategy should help you focus here. But you should also consider defining threats and opportunities in the areas of customer engagement, new digital products and services, operational performance, and new disruptive business models, which I'm sure we'll get into a bit more momentarily. Fourth, throughout this entire process, it's crucial to foster a strong digital culture So what does that look like? There are four pillars to a digital culture, including encouraging risk-taking. You as leaders must realize that not everything is going to work out great. Some things are going to actually fail. Make it okay to fail within your organization. That's what happens all the time in the technology sector. Next, foster innovation. Encourage employees at all levels, including your PMs, to innovate with digital technologies. Develop collaborative work environments. And finally, heavily invest in your people and talent. Fifth, to support your digital culture, it's important that you speak all a common digital language. To even get started, all employees from entry level to the C-suite should possess a baseline business technology and experience know-how. To grow beyond that, you must expand the baseline by removing silos and enabling a cross-section of specialists to actually be in close physical or virtual proximity of one another. This helps employees develop a common working language that facilitates seamless collaboration and increased efficiency. And lastly, with a strong digital culture and a common digital language in place, it's time to prepare your people. For the purpose of this discussion today, we're going to focus on empowering your project managers specifically. You must train your project managers, in my opinion, to bridge their digital knowledge and skills gaps by educating them not only on the new tools and software, but also on new processes and systems. And most importantly, you must recognize that project management is not an innate talent, but rather skill set in and of itself that can be taught and honed. Next, consider how you can evolve and digitize your firm's organizational structures and processes to facilitate better project management. Ask yourself, are you putting physical and manual process barriers that are slowing down your PMs? Look to remove those and digitize them to help your PMs become more efficient. And finally, take a look at your existing project management tools. How can you modernize them and transform them into a digital toolkit for your PMs? There you have it, 6 steps to digital project management within your firm. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. Have a great conference.
Thank you very much indeed, Javier Baldor, BST Global, and of course a fantastic look once again at the digital landscape and some opportunities that exist for us and for our industry right across here. We're going to be spreading out to the floor in a short moment with our catch box microphones, so if we can have our team with the catch boxes ready and raring to go. But I just wanted to move in and ask a couple of questions and pose them to you both and just see what might come from this. Greg, you mentioned earlier on the Project 13. You talked about this as a virtual enterprise, looking out across an asset's life cycle and perhaps using some elements of that reality mesh to digitally twin the physical asset and allow us virtually to track its progress. How widespread is this? Are we in the process of doing this physically wide scale, or is it very specifically for those who might have slightly deeper pockets than most?
Well, Project 13 per se is a joint exploration by infrastructure thought leaders in the UK under the auspices of the Institution of Civil Engineering, and they've come so far as to have an actual commercial handbook and sort of how to apply this new commercial concept. It's innovation commercially, not technically, and it leaves to these consortia that are put together to be a life cycle enterprise what the technical innovations would be, and I would hope they would include some of the ones that I talked about. It's a very good resource and includes some examples of programs that have followed, that have led the way with that notion that if you put together a synthetic enterprise, in other words, it doesn't need to be a P3 if you can use what I call an open information project to synthetically have a integrated project delivery, but where all of the participants share in incentives. That's the status of Project 13, and very major projects are about to get underway. Heathrow Airport renovation, third runway project, for instance, plans to use the Project 13 framework. So I'm sure there'll be those in the audience will be able to update on how it's working out soon.
Excellent stuff. We'll take it out to the audience shortly to see if we've got some comments or thoughts, ideas that people are already implementing, or perhaps have some questions for you both here on stage. Javier, you were talking around the 6 elements of what we need to do in terms to be digitally ready for our organisations to really embrace the elements of digital culture and provide us with better productivity, being able to increase levels of income and so forth. What do you see? Obviously, you've done the reports and so forth. What do you see out in the industry in terms of, I'll put this in context as well, based around the 2 questions we asked at the front of the day about how people see themselves ready for the Internet of Things and whether we are right at the forefront of it. What is your experience? Are we on the cusp of something great? Are we in the process of about to take off into the horizon?
As a technology company, Greg could probably share the same sentiment. We're very excited about the prospects of what technology can do. I think there's a tremendous opportunity within this industry for change, for those that are willing to embrace it. We talk about the Internet of Things, we talk about these kinds of things, but as we work with firms, many firms really struggle with basic project management practices. I don't know, perhaps we should have a survey question here, but in our research with many firms that we work with globally, some very prominent firms prior to coming to BST, the number 1 tool for project managers is actually spreadsheets, believe it or not. That's the way they bid projects, that's the way they manage projects, that's the way they resource projects. So there is this dichotomy or opportunity rather to really advance digital technologies and processes within many consultancies going forward. So we're certainly excited about AI, machine learning, and Internet of Things and those kind of things, but there's some basic step change opportunities that can take place within the 4 walls of your organization right now by taking a look at the processes that your project managers have to go through on a day-to-day basis. And it may be alarming to you what they have to do in order to do their jobs on a day-to-day basis. And there are huge efficiency opportunities, in my opinion, just starting right there without going to Internet of Things and AI and those kind of things down the line. So,
thanks, Javier. I'll look out to the audience to see if we have anyone with a potential question for our panelists here on stage at this point. If you have, just feel free to throw your hand as high as you can, because it's quite challenging to look out with the lights at this point. And we have catchbox mics. I believe they're coming around at the moment.
Greg, if we're waiting on that, I might just add something to Javier's answer there. I don't myself use the term digital transformation because on the one hand it might seem intimidating or that it's for someone else. On the other hand, it implies that there's something to get done and then it's over. I think we will always be going digital by degrees. And they're all advantageous degrees. It's just automating more and more digital workflows as you go. And incrementally and progressively in an accelerating way, they pay greater benefits the further we go in going digital. To your question, for instance, this question, I think you meant me to indicate, Greg, this notion of reality modeling where the drones capture the digital context, that is in widespread use. In some countries, there is no longer traditional surveying. I'll go that far as to say on major projects in China and India, it's most often a 3D survey now done with this process that results in an engineering-ready reality mesh. And many of your firm's projects are beginning to use that. More than half of those submitted for our Year in Infrastructure project this year. But that was something that wasn't possible 2 years ago, and it's completely changing the way we do surveying.
So the speed of change is an important factor. We have a question over here in this direction.
Yeah, Michael Snow from Canada. Thank you. It's hard not to be very excited by what you presented here today, and thank you very much. And I look forward, as Nelson mentioned earlier this morning, to be reverse mentored so I can catch up to all of this. Well, my question is this. The survey results that we saw earlier where half the firms were not embracing and I think it was nearly 2/3 of the firms were not looking forward to a digital or disruptive technologies. I would like to hear your thoughts on those results from this audience, and what do you see as the stumbling blocks for us being more engaged with some of these technologies that seem to be so, in our future?
So, may I take that one? So I believe that at the C levels of your firms, you do embrace the opportunities here. Who should be satisfied with the margins generated in consulting engineering today? And I know it may seem preachy or self-serving to say that from the software business, but we also transformed our business model in the software industry at large. We used to sell upfront licenses to our software, and we would transfer to you, our users and customers, the risk of fitness for purpose and obsolescence and so forth. We were done, we'd made a sale. It was like selling ours, analogously. Then the slowdown came about, and it was recognized that the software business wasn't a perpetual growth business, it was just a cyclical business. And it made much more sense then to focus on, as someone said this morning, helping users make the most of what they're doing and the value that software increasingly provides. The same is true of engineered assets and the value they can provide. So the software industry went into software as a service, leveled things out, improved margins, and today their business value is much higher. I believe that is what can happen when engineering consultancies change their business models with the death of the billable hour in favor of billing on value opportunities. And when most of your engineers are not going to be doing detailed design because that's been automated in digital workflows, you should have in mind that they are the ones applying the analytics in ways that solve the problems. The solutions, as someone said this morning, the solutions may not look like steel and concrete. The solutions may be existing assets that can be leveraged and used smarter. And if you would imagine, for instance, that your job as a firm weren't designing the storm drain, but rather providing resilience and flood resistance to a municipality and being paid for that on an ongoing basis, how your smart people would apply themselves to what types of artificial intelligence and machine learning and inspectioneering and operationeering would help bring that about. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity, which we shouldn't, there's no reason to be defensive about the status quo, in my opinion.
No, thank you for that.
I personally believe that this industry, if you were to take a look at it from the outside, is wonderfully ripe for disruption on a massive scale. And I believe it's going to come from the outside. I think it's going to be not necessarily the likes of Amazon, Google, and the like from the big ones, but know that these types of disruptions don't have to come from enormous companies. Instagram may or may not, maybe your kids use that tool, perhaps yourself, was 13 people when it was bought by Facebook for over $1 billion US. And Facebook saw themselves being disrupted by Instagram. And if you see the progression of Facebook usage is actually in decline, and Instagram has been its savior, per se. So you don't need to be a huge company. This business is an information business and a technology business. As was said by Mont McDonald earlier, I completely agree with those remarks. And figuring out that nexus between your tremendous domain and engineering expertise in concert with information and technology, embracing AI, Internet of Things, that's the opportunity for disruption here for someone in this room.
Thanks, Javier. Was there a further question? I'll take one to Tony Barry here from the front.
Hi, Tony Barry from Oricon and on the EC here at FIDIC. I suppose from my perspective, there's a lot of mystique around this, and I happen to be in a company that Javier knows very well and has a digital workforce all of its own. To me, there are two things that companies can do, and I'm just interested in your observations as to whether you're seeing it. So you talked about automated workflows, as all they are is digital business processes. And the ability to write the smallest process is an input, an algorithm and an output. And you put the output somewhere and you receive the input somewhere. It seems to me incredibly easy to start yourself, no matter how big you are, on this journey. And to me, we put too much mystique around it, as it were, because I think it's very, very simple. So that's one observation I'm interested to understand from you, and you obviously deal with a lot of us, a lot of our firms. Are you seeing the development of digital workforces that are looking at digital process engineering inside the companies?
So as succinctly as possible if we can, chaps.
Yes. In a big way.
Well, I agree. That's why I emphasize the mystique could be applied to advancing the best projects. But you already have best projects. You should apply digital workflows and going digital strategies to make the other projects work as well as your best projects. It is as simple as automating processes and so forth. And Bentley and BST and Oricon are working on digital workflows of that very example that aren't exotic but are going to make a difference. It just amazes me how many of your projects start every time as if you didn't have a body of knowledge about how to build, as Keith Howell said, a pump station or whatever. And you should have your firm's intellectual property should be your library of digital components, which might be owner-specific or whatever, or you should be in the business of maintaining those libraries for owners. And then you ultimately gain the reliability experience to better improve the design. There's nothing less than that. But it all is all doable steps along the way. There's nothing to be intimidated by.
There you have it in an absolute nutshell. There's nothing to be intimidated by. The opportunities are absolutely huge for us right across the industry. Thank you so much for both joining us here and presenting for us. Ladies and gents, another round of applause, please, for Javier Baldor and Greg Bentley. Thank you very much.